my name is Jason and you are watching Fri-Jays. In today's video, we'll be talking about the difference between sparse vector and dense vector in NLP. And this is something that a lot of people have been struggling with, and I hope to make it a bit more clear today. Well, if we look at a vector is actually a list of numbers. So this could be integers or floats. And a vector is a numerical representation of text. As we know, computers don't understand text, they understand numbers. So we have to convert text into numbers so that the computer can understand this. Now, vectors are used for things such as input for a classification model, to calculate sentence similarity, to cluster sentences, and a lot more. And if you look at a sparse vector, which also is actually a bag of words representation, and this is the part where we convert text into a fixed length vector by counting how many times each word appears. In contrast, dense vector, aka embedding vector, is a learned representation of text where words or sentences that have the same meaning have similar representation. And if we look at an example here, we have a sentence capital of Holland. And if we would convert this into a sparse vector, then it would look like this. So it will contain integers numbers with zeros and ones and two, depending on how many times a word occurs in a sentence. And on the right side, it looks a lot different for a dense vector. That's where things get a bit different than sparse vector. And we have here float numbers containing 0.095, 0.025, etc. One thing to know is in both cases, these sentences are a fixed vector length, depending on the model that you are using. Now, if you look here on the left side, keep in mind the bag of word representation. We have here a vocabulary containing different words, and this can be mixed, so it's not in order. And if I have here a sentence capital of Holland, and we can see here that the word capital is here, so we give that that word a 1. And that's how we can build our sparse vector here. And the is not present in the sentence is also not, so they all get a 0. Now, if we look at hello, then we can see here that hello is present 2 times in this sentence, so we go over to hello, and hello gets number 2. All right. Now, if we would move over to the embedding vector, so the dense vector, then things look a lot different. So if I have here the same sentence, capital of Holland, and we can see here that the representation is completely different. Okay, now the thing here, and the big difference between sparse vector and dense vector is that dense vector does a better job in understanding a contextual meaning of a sentence, whereas sparse vector has a harder time doing so. To give an example, we have here of capital Holland. Now, of capital Holland gets the same representation as capital of Holland. If you look here at the dense vector, then we can see if we pass a sentence of capital Holland, then the representation will look different compared to capital of Holland. Okay, now keep this in mind. If we want to calculate the similarity between two sentences, we can do this by using, for example, a cosine similarity. And we can use the vectors, so the sparse vector or the dense vector, to calculate this. And on the left side here, I have 2 examples. For this example, we have 2 sentences. And it's how old are you and what is your age? Well, if we look at it, we all know that, yeah, these 2 sentences are quite similar. I just want to know how old someone is, right? And if we would use here a sparse vector approach, then we would get a similarity score of 0. And that's because certain words here are not present in the other sentence. But if you would use here a learned representation, so a dense vector here, then that output will be 91%. So with 91%, the model is sure that these two sentences are quite similar to one another. Now, if we look at the second example here, hoe oud ben je is actually how old are you in Dutch. And again, if we would use the sparse factor to calculate the similarity, then we would get a 0. But if we would use the dense factor, then we get an output of 84%. And that's because a dense factor, you can also pass other languages. So Dutch, English, Spanish, French, and you can train that model and it will understand that how old are you and hoe oud ben je are very similar to one another. And that's where dense factors are very handy in things such as semantic clustering and semantic search because they do a really good job in understanding contextual meaning in a sentence. All right, that's it for today. I hope that the difference between sparse factor and dense factor is a bit more clear after this video, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good day.